Good morning, everyone. My name is Darius Walton, and I will be presenting to you today about reading instruction, reading assessments, and also reading equity. So today we will be going over the 5 areas of reading instruction. We will also be going over what reading assessments look like and the roles that they play in our children's reading, and also what equity in literacy looks like and how we can increase equity in teaching reading. I first would like to begin with a point that I'm going to make all throughout this presentation today, and it is going to be one of the things that I believe is really key to our teaching reading. It is that literacy is more than just the ability to read. Literacy encompasses efficient reading, efficient writing, efficient listening, and efficient speaking skills. When a student is able to do all 4 of those things, that is when they have accomplished efficient literacy. So I believe that it is our responsibility to not just teach our students how to read, but also how to write from what they are reading, and also write about what they are reading. It is important for them to be able to listen also, and also speak effectively and efficiently concerning what they are reading as well. Okay, so the first area of reading instruction that I would like to highlight and go over is phonemic awareness. This is the understanding that words are comprised of individual sounds and is the smallest units of sound that makes up phonemes. Now, this is what many researchers will declare as the foundation of reading. You can't really have many other areas or components of reading instruction without the students being able to master first the parts of sounds that make up words. So when you look at the word cat, for example, C-A-T, it is important for the students to be able to sound out every individual sound of that word so that they are able to recognize those sounds in different words in the future. So at, understanding the 3 parts of sound that make up that one word, at, making up that word, it also will help them to be able to sound out words in the future for words that are unfamiliar or that they don't recognize. They will have the practice and the skill of being able to recognize the individual sounds of a word. The next area of reading instruction is fluency. Now, this is important because when understanding the science of reading, I understand that fluency is not just in regards to one particular area. So you're going to see fluency here right after phonemic awareness, but you're also going to see fluency be an area or a component of reading in regards to another area as well, or in correspondence with another area as well. But fluency in regards to phonemic awareness is basically the mastery of skill of phonemic awareness to the point of being able to automatically read it, sound it out, and understand and comprehend it without there being any struggle. Once fluency is achieved for phonemic awareness, we then can move on to the next area of reading instruction. The next area of reading instruction is systematic phonics. Now, systematic phonics is an accurate written code which translates sound into a visual image. And this essentially is important because it is essentially teaching students the relationship between letters and sounds with a clear and a planned sequence. So instead of guessing words based on pictures or context, the students are taught how to decode by sounding out words or using specific phonic patterns, starting with simple consonant, vowel, consonant words like cat, and moving on to more complex patterns like blends and digraphs. Now, systematic phonics is extremely powerful because it builds a strong relationship with word recognition. However, it is still going to require fluency, which is the mastery of skill of systematic phonics to the point of automaticity. The fluency here is talking about being able to read with speed, accuracy, and expression. So it's important to build students in a fluent systematic phonic function and practice so that they can become fluent readers and no longer have to stop and sound out every word, but they are able to now recognize that word fluently so that when they're reading it in a full sentence, the sentence is able to be read without stopping, stuttering, or halting. The next area of reading is vocabulary development, which is the learning of new words and their meaning and morphemes through direct and indirect instruction. It also deals with developing tools to discover the meaning of an unknown word. Now, this is highly critical because vocabulary is the part of reading that directly contributes to comprehension. So students encountering these new words in texts and in their readings, their understanding is directly connected to how well they comprehend the definition of the word. So teachers help students to grow their vocabulary when there is direct instruction, so explicit instruction of vocabulary is critical, but there's also indirect instruction of vocabulary that is critical for the elementary student or any student at any age. For example, class language is a primary strategy for vocabulary development where the teacher uses academic vocabulary in everyday processes, in everyday language, and eventually it becomes the language of the entire class. I specifically have seen this happen even within the ISS room that I am an academic tutor in, where most of my frequent flyers, most of my students that frequent the in-school suspension room, they now repeat phrases that I say and they use words that I use because they are around me so much. So this vocabulary development is extremely critical in the students being able to comprehend. Now this brings me to the final part and the final area of reading instruction, which is comprehension skills. These are strategies that a reader may employ to better comprehend a text. So because vocabulary is directly connected to comprehension, knowing the words is just the start. Comprehension is the ultimate goal. It's the ability to understand, remember, and even apply what the reader has read. So this strong comprehension is not just the ability to retain knowledge or the ability to remember information, but it's the reader's ability to decode, dissect, analyze, and also apply what they have read and synthesize it with information that they have previously had. So some strategies to really foster strong comprehension within reading is to make predictions, summarize, asking and answering questions, and also really having them make inferences to the text that are in direct connection to knowledge that they have previously known, and even connecting ideas across texts. So having them connect to fiction or nonfiction pieces that they may have read previously, or they may have an awareness of, or even in this digital age, being able to connect it to some type of movie or TikTok or some type of trending idea that helps them really to engage the text and foster comprehension. So, in essence, it takes all five to thrive. Students are set up for success when they have strong foundational skills in reading, because every discipline and every subject is connected to literacy. So, whether or not the student's strength is math or science or social studies, no matter what subject they are most interested in, they are going to always have to have the skill and the discipline of reading. So, effectively and efficiently teaching the students how to read with all five of these fundamental components and areas really allows for the students to be set up for success and be able to comprehend more complex ideas and connect critical thinking to their reading and further develop intelligence and ideas that are built on the foundations of knowledge that they previously gained through reading instruction. To help evaluate and assess whether or not our readers are efficiently and effectively learning to actually read, there are four types of assessments. First, there are screening assessments, which are given at the start of the year and help really determine which students are struggling. These screening assessments are quick checks to identify what the potential difficulties of a student are. So, for example, DIBELS or DIBELS oral reading fluency test at the start of the year helps to flag the students that are needing extra support. The next test is diagnostic assessments, and these are assessments that are specifically assessing skills or components of reading. It helps to give a diagnosis, if you will. And it results in informed instruction and intervention. It just gives a deeper dive into specific skill gaps and for example, a phonics inventory can show if a student is struggling with decoding or not. The next one is outcome assessments, and these outcome assessments measure the overall achievement at the end of a period or at the end of the year. These are also known as high stakes assessments, and it measures to see if the student's skills are matching their grade level expectations. Lastly, progress monitoring assessments are tests that can be given throughout the school year, and they measure progress toward acquiring specific skills that have been taught. So, for example, a teacher might use a weekly fluency check to see if the interventions are actually working. Also, two types of assessments that can be used within the classroom, and that is a formative or a summative assessment. A formative assessment is more informal. It allows the teacher to give feedback to the students. It allows the students to make improvements and make revisions. But it also shows the strength and the weaknesses of the students, so that the teacher can have a more informed approach to their instruction and just help the students come into greater understanding and comprehension of the material within that segment, within that lesson or even time period. Summative assessment is more formal. These are the higher weighted assessments. These are the assessments that really can make or break a student's grade within a class. It evaluates the student's understanding of the learning material, and it is assessing the knowledge at the end of a unit or at the end of a lesson after the opportunities for revision and improvements have been given. All right, so here's where we now get to the real meat of this presentation, the outstanding issue that I believe is most prevalent and preeminent in education today, and that is equity in literacy. How can we close the gap in the literacy skills and efficiency that we see currently? The National Center for Education Statistics released that 87% of the fourth graders scored below proficient in reading in high poverty schools. However, 40% of those fourth graders scored below proficient in reading in low poverty schools. So essentially, what does that show us? That the higher poverty schools are experiencing higher illiteracy, and the schools that are filling the students that are filling the demographics of these high poverty schools are not performing well in reading and writing. 17% of Black and 21% of Hispanic fourth graders scored at or above proficient in reading. So, of course, that shows less than the majority, that the minority of the students in the fourth grade that are Black and Hispanic are scoring at or above proficient in reading. So there are more Black and Hispanic students that are not doing well in reading than there are Black and Hispanic students that are proficiently reading. 45% of white students scored at or above proficient in reading. This is getting a little bit higher. It is not 100%. However, for fourth graders, 45% of those white students are scoring at or above proficient. So there's a greater number or a larger amount of white students that are doing well in reading. Why is something like this important? It is important because it shows a severe gap that is currently taking place in our education system. Black and Hispanic students, the minorities, are not performing as well as the white students that are performing higher in their reading skills. So we need to take clear advancements and efforts towards closing that gap so that reading can be equitable. The further research and statistics show that it is not just that Black and Hispanic students are not able to comprehend, but there are some real logistics that are working against Black and Hispanic students, or students that are in high poverty environments. Lower income students are, number one, 3 times less likely to have access to a certified school librarian. So one of the ways that we need to close that gap is to increase resources for school librarians, and also increase resources for higher quality reading materials in low income environments. Another thing that we must do to increase equity is we have to increase and encourage literacy in the home. If we can start to foster our students to carry literacy into their homes and foster their families to, or encourage their families to foster literacy within their homes, then we can start to see some improvements within this literacy gap. 61% of low-income families do not have age-appropriate books in their home. Now, this is extremely critical because it is the majority of these low-income families that are not promoting literacy for their age-appropriate children. If we can start to encourage them to read more, facilitate reading sessions, read as a family, provide resources for age-appropriate books, and giving them free resources and tools that encourage age-appropriate reading, then we can start to see this number of low-income families that don't have age-appropriate books start to decrease. I think also what is very, very critical for increasing equity and literacy is increasing the literacy training for early childhood educators. Studies show that only 30% 37% of low-income students are enrolled in high-quality preschool programs that support early reading versus the 66% of high-income students that are enrolled in preschools that support early reading. So we've got to really train our preschool educators and support roles how to foster and teach the fundamental tools of literacy, those 5 components that we went over earlier, really allowing them to and really giving them, resources to be able to be confident in phonemic awareness, systematic phonics, and really establishing those fundamental principles within our early learners so that we can start to foster literacy at an early age and start to set some good patterns for literacy. Also, this will be key in discovering early challenges for our students. So it'll be an early discovery. If they're reading early, then we can find dyslexia early. We can start to identify different challenges that our readers are experiencing early when we start to foster early literacy. In essence, I believe that literacy is a transgenerational and transcultural tool that we must thoroughly equip our students with. So we've got to begin early. We've got to be efficient and effective in teaching these fundamental principles of literacy, really making sure that before our students leave our classrooms, that they are effective and efficient in phonemic awareness, in systematic phonics, that they're fluent in both of those areas, that we are really developing vocabulary and comprehension skills so that they can have the necessary foundation for all of the other disciplines that they will eventually learn about and read about throughout the career of their learning. I think also it is our responsibility to, number one, teach reading with these proper foundations. So again, making sure that we don't let our students leave the classroom without, or leave our school year without being efficient and being thorough in those fundamental principles. I think also we've got to efficiently assess reading. So we've got to be giving the right assessments that look for the right things and the right areas, and making sure that we are monitoring progress, making sure that we are facilitating our lessons that really help to build the strengths of our students, while also addressing and recorrecting and reforming the weaknesses of our students. I think, and lastly, it is our responsibility as educators to foster a greater equity in literacy. So really fostering inclusivity in our classrooms, making sure that we are expanding and broadening the concept of literacy, making it relatable, making it engaging and inspiring, and really connecting our readers to the content that we are putting in front of them to read.